So when I'm looking at who I'm going to work with and who I'm going to actually affiliate myself with, I am looking at your inclusion. I'm looking at who is represented in your organization, who you have, who you're connected with, and I say something about it. It's just important to me to make sure that what I present is my authentic and true self.
Change the Real, a podcast with Monique Velasquez and
Piper Kessler. For over 20 years, we've run a video production business that has achieved what only 3% of women entrepreneurs have done.
exceed $250,000 in revenue. We want to see business owners that look like us succeed. That's why we've started this podcast.
Change the Real will drop twice a month.
We'll release 2 types of episodes. One is with Piper and I kicking it and talking about using video in business.
And the second features conversations with business owners using media to drive diverse perspectives. This is Change the Real.
Representation starts here.
Hey y'all.
Hey y'all,
I'm Monique.
and I'm Piper Kessler. Today I'm excited to get to know and introduce our guest, April Browne. In nearly 30 years of service with the Durham Police Department, April Browne soared to the rank of captain. Approaching her retirement, April tackled the final challenge with the same relentless drive she always had. She wanted to decipher what to do with her 401k and how to make her money work for her in retirement. She found that the system was about as clear as mud, a term I love to use. April looked for a guide to get her knowledge that she needed to crack the retirement murkiness. April's eyes were open to the life and income impacting secrets of her pension and taxation, nuggets of wisdom that eluded her until finding and paying for an education about retirement finances. After retiring from law enforcement, she opened Zilkin Financial Services, LLC. April's business focuses on helping first responders understand their plan for retirement.
April, thanks for coming out today to our new space. You're one of the first ones in our space doing a recording, so yay. I'm glad it was a friend. I want folks to know that we know you as 2 things, a woman and a person of color in law enforcement and as a retirement specialist. We see both identities as necessary and worth sharing with our audience. We know that you're out there trying to change the real and the story about who is an expert in both industries. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, we are too. We've known you for a little while, and just recently we've reconnected with this new business venture of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually start with
Asking people if you could give your flowers to someone today for your entrepreneurial journey, who would you give them to?
Oh, wow. Really my mother. My mother had a business. It was called So Rare. She was a seamstress, and her expertise was in alterations and men's suits and that kind of thing. And I remember my mother was like, I'm gonna start my business. And I worked her shop for 5 years. So on the weekends as a kid, yes, I was working at my mother's shop. And so, and would help with the sewing and whatever else I needed to do. But yeah, she was the person who kicked off her own business. And even though she had it for 5 years, you know, part of that was she closed down due to a number of things that had occurred. And she was just like, oh, but she always wanted to go back to it, but never did.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, and was there anybody else that helped you along the way for?
Yeah, actually, how this even really kicked off was I ended up connecting with this guy who worked with me around my finances and really working my 401k. And as we were talking, I was like, I could do what you do. I mean, really, honey. And he was like, well, okay. So he invited me to this business mastery class, which really wasn't a business mastery class. It was a rebranding. We just didn't know that. So I go to the class and I was just like, okay, I can do this. This is really fascinating to me. And so I ended up connecting with a guy named Bobby Alford. And how can I, because I love the shoes, child, because the shoes are flossy. I was like, boy, that's some Dapper Dan shoes you're wearing, baby. I like them. He was like, well, thank you. And so that kind of kicked it in, and then we became fast and steady friends, and I liked him. I thought he was a really cool dude. And it's from there, he was like, yeah, I'd love to work with you. So he was the person who helped me really get started in understanding the business. And God, when I say the first 2 years, I was like, what in the world is happening? I don't think I know my ass from my head sometimes.
You know, business journeys are no joke.
Yeah.
Because you go with the idea, oh, I see a niche. I see what I can do. I see my strength working right here.
Right.
And then you got all these other things that you don't want to do, like marketing and and hiring other things.
And all these other things. So from there, he was like, I need you to do this one thing first. Don't talk to me. We can't talk business until you do this one thing. And I was like, okay, fine. And then when I passed and got my license, I was like, ooh, I got my license.
And a license in what?
In insurance. So I'm an insurance agent by trade.
Okay.
And so that's the foundation by which I started from. Okay. And then from there, I've been learning different things about the financial industry, which has been totally fascinating to me. And I was just like, God, if I knew this like 20 years ago, my whole situation would be very, very different. Very different.
Yeah, well, tell us about, you're talking about your business now, and what's the heart of what you do? Because you're talking about 20 years ago, what keeps you motivated to show up in the industry now?
What keeps me motivated to show up is what I've learned. I mean, there's so much information out here. And if you can drill it down for a client or a prospective client, for them to be able to say, that makes a lot of sense to me. Mm-hmm. And that actually works for me. That's the goal. I don't want to convince you to do anything. That's the big piece. And part of this, I think, is the not wanting to convince people is I'm coming from a background where, we show up because everything is gone to shit.
That's right. Police is involved. Okay.
Yeah, they bring us. And part of it is really having a conversation. So you got to deal with the confrontation of things. And so a lot of the skill sets that I've learned really translate to what I do in the financial service industry. And so the goal for me is I want to help people who want to be helped. However, what that means is I don't want to tell you how to do things. Mm-hmm. I want to show you. If it makes sense for you, then do it. If it doesn't, then that's fine too.
Who do you like to work with? I mean, it sounds like you've got, okay, that's their profile, but where are you focused on helping people?
Well, initially my niche was and has been to work with law enforcement. I just haven't really had any real traction in that particular niche itself. And so what's happening is I'm just talking to various different people. And so from talking to people while I've been in this industry, who tends to have the most assets are going to be really your folks 50 plus and older, right? They've worked the longest. They're the ones who've acquired assets. And so as I'm looking at this, people are in different places. So my folks who are in my 20s and my 30s and really kind of midway 40s are still trying to acquire. And right now, it's really hard to acquire. It's hard to get buy a home. It's hard to do this. It's hard to save. What does saving look like? The market's always going crazy. Things are up and down, and folks are just like, I don't know what to do. And so my general group has been really my 50 plus and older folks. And so some have been in law enforcement, some have not. And so I've just kind of talked to different people that run the gamut in terms of, where they are. For the career.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
Was there a single moment that stands out to you of realizing that representation wasn't there and that you could fill a void? Was there a single moment that you can think of?
Yes,
okay.
Actually there is. I attended a training, like a 2-day training, and the gentleman, he's known in the industry. His name is Van Mueller. And he was giving a talk, and one of the things he said was, listen, this industry is known to have white guys, but the community and the country we live in is not made up of white guys. And I was like, oh. And he was like, we need to see more people, women, people of color. He said, I'm glad to see people out here who don't look like me are really coming into this industry. So I ended up actually stopping and having a conversation with him and said, one, thank you for that. I said, you're the only person and the first person I've heard say that. Secondly, I appreciate your thoughtfulness around people want to see people who look like them. And they want to interact with people who look like them. They want to know that there are things out here that they can do that somebody's willing to talk to them about. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And so that let me know, all right, this is a space that I can stay in. And so for me, as a woman of color, I've been really mindful about the spaces that I go into. I'm getting ready to do a program, and basically around this program, I said, you cannot pair me with just anyone.
Okay.
You must connect me with somebody who, ... underlying tone, understands me. And it was like, I'm a woman of color, I'm a woman, I'm Black, and if they don't understand that, then this is not going to be a really good working relationship.
And what was the response to your direct, I want to be connected with this?
At first they were like, well, of course we're going to interview you, we're going to interview them. I said, no. Let me break this down for you. And then when I did, they were like, oh, okay, April.
Right, the light bulb goes off and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I'm going to be more successful with attracting the people that are already attracted.
Right. And so they were just like, we will be mindful of that. And I said, okay, that is what I'm asking that you do, is be mindful of that. Because if you put me with somebody who,
Wants the older white guy.
yeah, who's
Who
not
worked
really,
corporate for years
yeah,
and years?
I said that's not going to be a good look, and it's not going to work well.
It's not going to connect. You're
Yeah,
just not going to.
we're not going to connect at all. And they were like, we get that. And so sometimes
Not that you won't, but it is less likely.
less likely. And so a lot of times I think in these spaces, you do have to advocate for yourself.
Absolutely.
One, two, you have to bring certain things to the forefront for folks that don't necessarily think about these things.
Yes. And I want to talk a little bit about where did you get this push and advocacy for yourself?
Ooh. Okay, so part of that probably is just from my mother. My mother worked in human resources for the city of Durham, and she advocated for a lot of people. She didn't care what you looked like, who you were. If somebody wronged you, she was going to right it. That was the bottom line.
All right.
What she wasn't going to allow was people to be, roughshod and just kind of run over. And she would not allow that. And so I learned a lot of that from her. Those were the seeds that were laid for me. And then even when I went into law enforcement, I mean, I was like, listen, if you did something wrong, we're going to handle it. Okay. I'm not going to let them, trample all over you in the process. I'm going to keep it fair. And if it's unfair, I'm going to speak on that. And so that was what I wanted to do in my career, especially as the supervisor. And so that really carried over into just kind of what I do in my life in general. Mm-hmm. And so going into this particular industry, I'm just like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. And so it's really been interesting to just, kind of feel your way through. And so what I did say to them was this. I said, you can't talk religion nor politics to me in a workplace. It's not acceptable. I'm not going to have it. I don't care what your religion and your politics is. This is work, and this is where we have to draw the line because we're here to do something.
Right.
And so that's my approach and has been my approach.
Why do you think inclusion matters to you as a business owner? What's been the most rewarding or challenging part of weaving that in to what you're doing? the most rewarding.
That inclusion piece is something for the birds, but I'm trying to tell you right now, it's hard. It's hard because a lot of times people don't think about that. Mm-hmm. So when I'm looking at who I'm going to work with, and who I'm going to actually affiliate myself with. I am looking at your inclusion. I'm looking at who is represented in your organization, who you have, who you're connected with, and I say something about it. For instance, there's an organization I'm connected with, and they were working with a company, and I remember looking at the company's website and looking at all the people, and I said, "You all picked the whitest company ever."
Let me point out the obvious here.
And they were just like, "What do you mean by that, April?" I was like, "Nobody is of color." Really? Nobody? Not one person. Not one.
Not even the receptionist.
Not even a receptionist. And then they were just like, "Whoa." And I said, I know you all don't think about that, but you really should think about that, because the bottom line is diversity does matter. And it matters because what it does is it brings in different perspectives. Everybody ain't got to look like me. And I don't want everybody to look like me.
Right. And studies show that when you start opening the doors past, sort of your comfort level, that there's representation inside the business that allows you to get bigger profits.
Right.
We talk about this with different industry folks about representation. And what I also think is, as a business owner, people should be more aware and more willing to flex the idea that I want to work with a company, a business that thinks about these things.
Right.
And that is absolutely, as a business owner, where you can show up and help not just yourself,
Right.
but the company that does something completely different that also looks like you. Right? So those are the places that I think business owners should absolutely start talking about with their colleagues, their vendors, and their other business associates about representation.
And it could, because it does matter. It reminds me of there was a young lady who I'd hired to do my social media for a little while.
Okay.
And one of the things that she did was she was like, "Well, I'm going to hire an assistant." And I told her, I said, "Well, in hiring your assistant, you need to make sure that you're specific in terms of what you're looking for that person." And she was like, "Oh yeah." I said, No. Like, write that down, what you're specifically looking for, and be clear with that person as you're interviewing these folks so they understand what your perspective is. I said, because you're going to run into an issue. And so she was like, "Oh, yeah." Sure.
Kind of listening.
Yeah, kind of listening. And she hired this lady, and she had a client who was LGBTQ plus client. And the woman said, I can't work with them. And she said, "Wait, what?" And she was like, "Well, I don't believe in that." She said, "That has nothing to do with anything. They're my clients." And so she's telling me this, and I said, "What did I tell you?"
Write that down.
And she went, I said, "It matters. You have to just ask people." I was like, because it's your business.
That's right.
Right.
They're a reflection of your company.
They're an extension of you.
Exactly. And so for me, it's really important that whoever I bring into the fold, if I bring people to come work for me, you're a reflection of me. And if diversity doesn't matter to you, then we're not going to work together.
We might be social.
No. No.
No, we're not.
No, listen,
Yes,
y'all.
I do remember your story.
I'm 55, gonna be 56 this year, and I am here to tell you my patience for nonsense is really, really short. There are certain things that I'm just gonna not have in my life in general.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, I'm just not. Because if you can't be in my business setting, you definitely can't be in my personal setting. It's just, it's too much. It's too much to, juggle. Because if there are too many people that I have in my life who I have a very diverse group of folks that I'm connected with.
Yeah,
and so
we're appreciative of that fact, because you are definitely open and willing to socialize with us.
You've shown yourself to be an ally,
Yeah.
and I mean that's important to other people too, right? You want to know when you're hiring somebody. It's like, well, I've got to disclose, especially this. It's like I've got to disclose all this information about myself and assumptions about what I may want for my future and what my needs are going to be. And it's like, you got to be open about that. You want to hire the person who's not going to be sitting there judging you.
Can't.
Right.
Or being like,
or your
oh, maybe I
clients.
don't
Or
want-
my clients.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, or, you know, other people that I do business with or I connect with on a business level and personal, those kinds of things. And so it's just like, no, we cannot have that. And so I think it's really important. It's just important to me to make sure that what I present is my authentic and true self. Like, that's really important.
That's awesome. You want to go with this
Yeah, so along those lines, so how has video and storytelling helped you amplify your voice or connect with your audience in a way that feels authentic? Now, we've watched your stuff, so we know.
So it took me a minute to really, first, let me just say, social media is not I've not been a big fan of, but that's because I'm a Gen Xer and we grew up with MTV and 24-hour news, and then, you know, here comes the social media piece. I was like, ooh, honey, that's living your life out too loud. I do not want to know what you are doing every minute of the day. And so, however, I know it's the way. So in that, I was like, okay, how do you do this, and do this in such a way that you're comfortable with it and you're okay. So the YouTube channel has become I really dig it because I can just record, throw that thing on YouTube, you know, we're gonna get it edited and do that kind of thing. And I get to, my personality gets to shine in a way that you may not see if I'm talking to a client, that kind of thing. So I get to shine through YouTube. And I really dig that. I like it. And I've had a couple of people who are like, girl, you should do a podcast. It's like, the only podcast I would be willing to do is when I get to talk shit.
Well, there you have it. So,
What could the title be?
and I think so.
Fireside with
So
April.
how do you feel like, you know, that? Do you feel like in the end, people are going to find you on this YouTube and go, I want to work with April?
Well, you know, with that, let me say this. One, it's hard to get traction. Like, I still feel like it's hard to get traction because what you got to do is people got to know, like, and trust you.
Right.
And trust is the last. So maybe the know is the beginning, the like you is the second, and the trust is definitely last. And so because they've got to do those three things, you know, you got to, how do you get in front of people for them to even just get that? And so I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm very clear on that.
That's true.
And so because I'm not everybody's cup of tea, I'm cool with that. Keep it moving. Pass me up. You ain't even got to look at my stuff if I'm not your cup of tea.
That's right.
Because I may not. However, there may be information that I have that is useful for you. You may not work with me, but there is useful information I have on my YouTube channel, which is very helpful. So I have a client who I was like, girl, you want to know how to retire? Here, I send it to you. So I sent her everything.
Right.
And so, you know, I just feel like who is for me is going to come to me.
Excellent.
That is, and I don't want to be everybody's thing. I'm not interested in that.
That's true. We talk about how you know, being that authentic self on screen repels the people you want to repel.
Right. Very much so.
And that is part of the equation that you don't really, it's like, I want people that are jazzed by my energy, my presence, my information, and the way I give it to you.
Right. Because I am a cusser.
I am a cusser too.
And I do use colorful language when I'm talking. I think one of the funniest videos I've done, and it cracks me up every time I watch it, is I talk about, it's called The 3 Wishes of Retirement. And so I equated that to 3,000 Years of Longing with a movie with Idris Elba and Sweeney. And honey, I was like, honey, ooh, Idris is looking so daggone fine. Good Lord. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. Let me come back. And so, and when I watch it, it just makes me chuckle because I was like, who are you?
So you had a good time with that.
I did. I really did.
Well, we'll chalk that up to, I'm going to watch it as soon as we're done here.
Oh yeah, because the young lady who's working with it, she's like, you are so silly. I was like, latest. My goodness.
Yeah. No, I mean for most of the movie because he goes down. He goes down a little bit, so.
Yeah. But it was cool. I actually liked the movie. I love the movie because when they showed, King David, who went to go see the most beautiful woman in the world, Queen of Sheba. I said, gosh, she is beautiful. Oh my Lord. I was like, yo, man, what can you do with that? And he was like, I loved her. And we're like, yeah, but you was the genie baby.
All right.
David kicked you out he was like, you got to go. You're interfering with things. But yeah, cool movie.
It is a cool movie.
It is a cool movie.
And so, I wanted to bring you on and talk about business. But the thing about it is, like, you have this interesting perspective coming from, and you don't talk about a whole lot, your experience in law enforcement. And I get that, there's, you're not too far out from it, and you know people still in place and that sort of thing. And I know that you're willing to give your opinion on what it is that you think needs to be said. But part of it is, I want to talk about representation. You were a woman in a very heavily male-dominated field. Mm-hmm. What challenges did you see as a woman as you were going through the ranks?
I came into DPD, Durham Police Department, probably like in the late 90s. So I was working there previously in another capacity, and then became a police officer. And so kind of mid 90s to the late 90s when I became a police officer in 1996. And so what I saw was Durham had a decent representation, I think, of black officers, just not a great representation of command staff. Right. So meaning lieutenants, captains, and above. And as I was, working and moving up the ranks, one of the things that probably set that up, her name was Teresa Chambers. She was the chief.
Yep.
In the 2000s, mid 2000s. Mm-hmm. And because of Teresa and Kathy Coachling, those two women made some things happen. And really, I feel like Teresa was like, Kathy, I need for you to get me women and people of color in the ranks. And because that occurred, we saw this influx of people of color and women coming through the ranks. And that's what helped set up the police department. When you looked up, by the time I made captain, like our command staff was predominantly people of color. I mean, it was a significant amount. We never had that many, ever. And so it was intentional. Mm-hmm. And what I realized as I was, moving up the ranks, that you had to be intentional if you wanted to see change happen in your department. So if you were a woman and you're a woman chief coming in, you must say, I'm knighting you to make X, Y, and Z happen. That is the only way that's going to go down. Because as a chief, you're too busy doing, working the day-to-day stuff. Mm-hmm. But you need that one person, whether it's your deputy chief, your major, your assistant chief, one person who is going to come in and do what it is that you want them to do, mm-hmm. and make the things happen while you're, doing what you're doing from day to day.
Do you feel like once you got into the command staff, that you were able to do that incrementally as you went, like knighting somebody below you to sort of like start filling that pipeline too?
We did. So it was a group of us that as we moved into the command staff, we would do classes for promotional processes and say, hey guys, promotional process is coming up. We're going to do a class. We're going to walk you through the steps and so on and so forth. And every time we did that, the group of people that came through, they usually did pretty well. And so that was really important for us to keep that pipeline going. And however, with that, you got to be intentional. Things are not going to happen just because you want them to happen. If you don't have any intentionality behind that, it is not going to happen, period.
Right. And, police has a different structure than, it's a little more paramilitary.
It's paramilitary.
And than a corporate situation, mm-hmm. but at the same time, it can act a lot like a corporation. Where you have a leadership that believes in a specific outcome, and then they make it happen. The political will makes it happen.
Right. And so, however, if your leader is not focused on certain things, then things will fall through the cracks. And, things have just fallen through the cracks.
And we see that a lot of other places potentially, and organizations change as leadership changes and that sort of thing. I'm also interested in did you feel like there was a time that you were like, well, yes, I'm going to die on this hill, and maybe you shouldn't have?
No.
Oh, good for you.
No, actually, I pick and chose which hills I was going to die on.
Yeah, and I feel like that is a self-preservation move, because you're in it for the career.
Right. And so if I brought it up and people didn't feel like it was important, I was like, then okay, then you're gonna be wrong and I'm gonna be right, but it's all right. We'll see what happens. And of course, guess what? I was right. And so, but then you don't rub it in. I did a little bit, but anyway.
And there's nothing wrong with that sort of like proof. There's proof that you had the right idea, the right path, and in getting to the objective desired. And I appreciate that you're outspoken and that you are out there doing this in business now for your own self.
Right.
And so those are the things that I think are amazing, and why I wanted to have you here.
Thank you.
And to talk about representation using video and just being the voice in business that shifts the story about who should be your financial advisor. Why do you think it's important to have, Black women in the finance field?
Well, I don't have the credentials for that financial advisor, and I doubt if I'm gonna ever get them.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say that.
All right, retirement
'Cause
advisor.
it take a lot. However, I do think it's important to have women of color, just women in general, in this space, and because part of the deal is people want to see folks who look like them. One, and they want to see folks who look like them because they feel I'm comfortable around a person who looks like me and who understands the vernacular, who understands the nuances of things. And so, because if you're coming in with a pretty clear picture of, okay, listen, this is a lot happening, but this is what we're gonna do. And so I've been in some spaces where people are like, whoo, thank you, Jesus, you Black. And I was like, I am. And they were just like, okay. And then we get to talking and I'm like, okay, and now I understand your point of view, your perspective. Thank you so much. And so I think it's important. I do. I think there's so much information out here. It can be overload, one. Two, if you can have somebody who's willing to not tell you what to do, but guide you along the way. Because you may not be comfortable with the suggestions I make. And I'm like, April, I'm not comfortable with it. Okay, tell me why you're not comfortable with it. And we drill it down. Okay, well, let's think about this. And so, but that requires being one, open, being willing to listen to the person. And though I might see like 15 things that you need to do, if those 15 things aren't important to you, then guess what? They're not important to you. Mm-hmm. I need to figure out, by asking you questions, what's really important to you? What do you need to do? And I work from there. Okay. And so it's a relationship that you're creating. And so people want to talk to somebody who looks like them because there's this comfort level for folks.
There's a shortcut to knowing, they might understand my experience a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So, all right, so we are going to wrap up a little bit here and say next steps for if somebody's watching and they want to work with April Browne.
Work with me.
Zilkin Financial. What services? What do they do? How do they reach out?
Well, you can reach out to me by going to zilkinfinancial.com. I actually have a webinar on my website that they can watch if they want to just kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about. It is long. I am going to preface that. I know everybody got a 3-second span for attention, so just know it's a little long. However, it's great information, and from there I can capture your email, and then if you want to, reach out to me. If you don't want to watch the webinar, you can reach out to me through Fact Finder at zilkinfinancial.com. Z-E-L, so let me spell it correctly. So it's going to be Fact Finder at Z as in zebra, E as in Edward, L as in Lincoln, K as in King, E as in Edward, N as in Nora, financial.com.
There you go. And so that's the best way to get a hold of you. I am. You have any last words or?
No, I mean one of the things that I think defines who you are from what I've learned of you in the last few years is you got frustrated learning something. You got presented with the information and went, I know how to present it to someone like me. Mm-hmm. And then it was almost like I feel like you're one of those people that always feels like when I talk to you that you feel of service to people. Because when somebody's just talking to you about their business, you're like, oh yeah, I know what you can do, And I know people call on you for stuff like that. And that's just one of the things. I mean, knowing that that's where you're coming from.
Service.
That you're in service. That's very different to me than somebody who's, let me study this, learn it, and it's something I know and I'll share it. It's like you had a need to know and you learned it well enough that you're like, I can help someone else along this journey.
Well, the funny thing is, I tell people I went from the frying pan to the fire, because essentially I went into another industry where it was people. It was serving people. Right. I serve people in law enforcement, and yes, I know right now law enforcement is
got a little shadow.
Got a little shadow. But when I was in it, I was honorable. Okay, that's what I'm gonna say. However, with all of that, I was still helping people in a different capacity. Yeah, you might go to jail. Depends on what's going on. And then I moved into another industry. I was like, man, I'm helping people again. And so this is even funnier to me because I tell this joke, and it's really serious. I say, people would rather show me a body part than talk to me about their finances. And it is a truth. They're like, don't you want? No, I don't. Tell me what's going on with your finances. But you sure you don't want to see my foot? No, I don't want to see your foot. No.
Yeah, money's a funny thing, right? And I think culturally there's a lot in play there.
Yes, very much so.
And
because we don't talk about finances.
And we need to normalize talking about how much we make and what's happening next door with the same, job, whether it's the same or not.
Right. And so, yeah, it is taboo, and it can't be, especially if you want to retire and you want to live the life that you want to live.
There you go. All right, well, we're going to wrap up today, and I want to say, please work with Zilkin Financial Services, because I think you're going to connect and work well with April to figure out your retirement ideas.
And until the next episode,
we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Change the Reel. If you like the episode, subscribe, share it, or leave a comment. And remember, representation starts here. Hasta pronto. See you soon.